I'm Katie Laviola. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Laviola. I'm going to just review the course requirements with you, give you a general overview of what to expect out of the courses in high school, and then review some of our course offerings and programs that we have to offer. Oh. So the high school graduation requirements. By the end of the 4 years, your student will have received at least 135 credits. We have some basic requirements that need to be met before a student can graduate. Then there's a lot of room for additional electives, additional credits. So this is just the bare minimum of what a student needs to get out of high school. So a student would need 4 years of phys ed and health, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, but we strongly suggest a 4th year of math, but that's very student, really depends on the student. 3 years of a lab science, we'll review what those are. 2 years of US history, 2 years of a world language, that's 2 consecutive years of the same world language typically. 1 year of world history, 1 year of visual performing arts. These are electives, and there are a lot of choices to meet that requirement. 1 year of family consumer science, again, electives with lots of options, and a year of humanities, along with 2.5 credits of financial literacy. Again, these are just the basic requirements to graduate. Your student will end up taking a lot more electives and a lot more core classes by the time they graduate. Grade point average. So I know a lot of freshmen come in, and after the first marking period of grades, they start asking about their GPA. GPA doesn't update until a grade is final. So at the end of their freshman year, they will have their first GPA. So when we apply to colleges with your students in the fall of senior year, the GPA that we send is from freshman to the end of junior year. So really they only have 3 years to build up their GPA. So freshman year is really important. That's not to say if freshman year is really a struggle and they have a difficult transition and their GPA is lacking, that they don't have a lot of options. A school, universities and colleges love an improvement story. So if your student really struggles and they're able to improve, attend our free tutoring programs, meet with their teachers, and they really do well over the next 2 years, that looks really good for them. So that's a great thing for them to do. Attendance. I'm not going to go too deep into this. We're going to talk a lot about it once your child's in high school. But in order to receive credit for a class in high school, it's the grade times the seat time. So for NJ state law, a student has to spend a certain number of hours in class. So absences matter. You go over these number of absences, there's a review board, we take notes, we talk about it, but just know that attendance really matters in high school. The scheduling process. So this is done in high school online on OnCourse. You guys are going to do it at the middle school with your counselors, and they'll talk about how you're going to do that when you hear from the counselors there. But the requests that you're putting in are just requests. Nothing is a guarantee. So originally they're going to put in the classes that they want. We need to know how many students want every course so that we can build a good schedule. There should be lots of options. They should put alternates. They should put things that they want, and then they should talk with their counselor about what those things are. We're going to give you an idea of what the electives are that we have. We also have a really cool virtual program of studies online where you can see what the classrooms look like. You can see what alumni have said about the classes. You can see some of the programs that the courses are doing at the high school. So definitely take a look at that, and I'll show you that as well.
And just to follow up on that, Ms. Lavio, if you can just go back one.
Yeah.
All right. I know at the middle school, they are floating the idea of doing some of this online. Now, as parents, I'm sure they're going to communicate that with you exactly what that process looks like. But just like Ms. Laviola said, as a freshman, you're really looking at 2 elective courses. You have your 4 cores of math, science, English, and social studies. You have a phys ed class, which is 5. Most kids will take their foreign language starting their freshman year. When I say most, 90 to 95% of the kids will do that. So you're really thinking of your 2 elective options that you have. And like Ms. Laviola said, put the requests in. What they'll also talk about, and Ms. Laviola, I think you can go ahead one. They talk about alternates. So having your children provide the counselor with more than one option allows us to say, all right, if there's if you have 2 elective options, but I'm going to give you 4 of them and that you're okay with any of the 4, it helps us build a schedule that, your son or daughter will be okay with. All right. So I know Ms. Laviola is going to go through this part here, but I just wanted to add that part in.
Okay, so this is the online tool for how to request through OnCourse, but I don't think you guys are going to be doing that in the middle school. The course offerings. So I'm going to show you this really quick, the interactive program of studies. Mr. Wisniewski, can you see the page? Did it follow?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, perfect.
And while it's opening up, I know the video that you're going to see right at the very front is the one that we showed at the open house. This is actually a site that a couple years ago during COVID years, we put this together. And when I say we, it was a combination of our marketing students, our graphic design students, and it was awesome to be able to collaborate with them to help build each of these individual projects. So when you look at the layout of the site, consider that it was done by our graphic design students. So if it's something that your son or daughter may be interested in is, topics such as that, you'll be able to, this is a perfect example. And also for marketing, what types of information do kids want? What types of information do parents want? And that was sort of that was our mindset as we built this together. So in here, and we'll share this again, you have the you have the opportunity to look through, review all the different courses. At the top, it breaks it down. The About Us gives you a little insight about some of the things that we have, some of the highlights that we've had at Wayne Valley. One part that you might want to be aware of is if you go to the right where it says more, and then drop that down to counseling, what you're going to see is you go to the freshman electives. What's easy about that is as a freshman coming in, you're not sure which elective classes are available for freshmen. Remember I said you're looking at 2 elective choices. So what this site does is it breaks down exactly which electives are available for freshmen. In clicking on any of these, it brings you to a short course description of them. So we wanted to take all that information of what the individual classes looked like for a freshman and make it really easy for everybody to be able to find it and navigate through the site.
So when you have time, definitely take a look at this. This is a good way for students to see exactly what the courses are. I'll go over our program of studies too, which lists in PDF format what the grade requirements are, what the prereqs are for each class. But this is more of an in-depth way for students to see what the courses will be. Skip through. Okay, so we're going to go into each subject area just briefly. English. So students will take their 4 core classes or the 4 to 5 core classes each year, but each subject area also has electives. So for example, the English classes have general, enriched, and honors for English 9. But then there's also electives that can meet the humanities requirement. These would be things like journalism, yearbook, writer's workshop, which is a half-year course, or film studies. In our program of studies, you'll see that there's a lot more options, and humanities is a pretty broad group. So there's history electives that meet this as well. Your recommendations will come from your teachers in 8th grade into which level your student will go into freshman year. And this is something we'll review each year. Your student's teacher and the counselor will talk about their leveling. So if they're in a general course and they're doing really, really well and it's coming really easy to them, their teacher might recommend that they move up the next year to enriched. Something about general versus enriched versus honors. Enriched carries an additional weighting into the GPA. So if you're doing really well in an enriched class, it gives you a little more oomph in your GPA. Doing really well in a general class or doing really poorly in a general class, doing really poorly in an enriched class would add more weighting into there. So it's something to consider, the weighting matters, but we'll review this each year and it's something that can always be changed.
And just like Ms. Lavielle said, for all of our honors and AP classes work on a 5-0 scale. The enriched classes start at a 4-2-5 scale, and the general classes start on the 4-0 scale. So any course that you see designated with the enriched will carry that 4-2-5. Any AP or honors courses. So as a freshman, you're looking at Unified 3 carries an honors weight, world history honors, English 9 honors, and then biology or chemistry honors.
History and world studies. History, this is for sophomores, but the world history course would be what freshmen would take. So you can go into the world history course in 9th grade, and then sophomore year, you'd go into US 1 or AP US History 1. Electives for 9th graders are world geography. Then we have other options that meet the humanities requirement that you can take when you get into sophomore, junior, senior year. World language. So you need 2 years of a language to graduate. So if your student is going to go freshman year next year, they should start with their first year of a language. There are definitely some times where a student does not take their language their first year in ninth grade. Most students do, but this is a conversation you'll have with the counselor. Um, if you don't take it in ninth grade, you definitely will have your student take it in 10th grade. So these are also weighted with Enrich. Some have honors classes. Taking 2 years is to get out of high school, but if your student's doing really well in their language and they're excelling and it's not coming too difficult for them, we always suggest doing 3 to 4 years of a language. That looks really good for a lot of universities, colleges, and programs. But if it's something that they're struggling with, it's not worth continuing, and they can try other electives, try other programs, because there's another area where they'll probably excel.
And one other thing, if they're currently in, say, Italian 1, Spanish 1, or French 1 in the middle school, and they're coming into the year 2 of it, they still do need to take 2 years. So they would have to take the second level and third level to meet the graduation requirement. Then the fourth level of the course, where it does carry the honors weight, would then count towards that humanities. So you coming in with Spanish, if you already take a Spanish 1, you would start in Spanish 2, but that's your first year of taking that requirement at the high school level. So you'd have to take Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and then if you wanted to keep going forward, that Spanish 4 would then count as your humanities. Just to make that clear that you can't fulfill a graduation requirement from the middle school. I know we did have a question, so we'll just jump in here just so we don't get too far ahead. PK, if you want to jump in, I know you had your hand raised.
Yes. Is there a minimum number of credits required or requirement? Sorry. I know there's a maximum number of credits, 40 per year. But what if a student satisfies 135 credits by the senior year? Can less than that be taken in the last year?
The minimum number of credits that a student could be enrolled in is 35. Where that number would come down a little bit on a year is if they were taking a study hall, but they're only allowed to take one study hall. So with that, just to answer your question, almost all of our kids far exceed the 135 credit graduation minimum. What'll happen there, like I said, I mean, typically 4 years worth of 40 credits gives you 160 credits. So right off the bat, you can see how far ahead they're going to be. But in terms of a minimum, you have to be enrolled in 35 credits. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. And we have one more question. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Scott, I would like to know what is the difference between honor student versus a general student? How an honor student will be in the high school?
So you broke up a little bit. I just want to make sure I heard the question. What's the difference between an honors and an enriched class?
Yep.
Okay, really and we'll get into this a little bit more, but the difference there, and again, it may vary a little bit by course, but the thing that I would understand is depth and speed. So they're going to cover this, the curriculum is going to be similar, but they're going to get into more depth. They're going to ask harder type questions. They're going to be a greater set of responsibilities. And the questions are going to be a little bit harder to answer. Again, still revolving around the same concepts and themes, but asking it in a much more in-depth manner, and with a higher expectation for the students to be able to understand the concept, where they're more working on their own, where in the enriched and then even down to the regular levels, a little more support, teachers guiding along the way. But by the time you get to that honors track, there's an expectation that you go home, say it's an English or a social studies class, you're reading, say 30, 40 pages, doing an assignment, having it ready by 2 days, 3 days from there, where in an enriched class, maybe you give them a week for that similar assignment.
How does that impact the grading? Like
the impact on the grading, like I said, it works on a different scale. So you're working on, when you're in that honors class, you're working on a 5-0 scale. So an A in that class carries that 508, where an A in an enriched class is only a 425. So what happens, and again, it's all proportional moving down between an A minus, B plus, B minus, B. You know what I mean? That's all like set. So obviously taking the higher class, and Miss Laviola hit on this a little bit earlier, when we get a little bit farther down the line and kids are looking at colleges, there's that fine line between challenging themselves, but also finding success. We do caution kids about taking 4 or 5 AP honors weighted courses if they're going to get C's across the board, right? What we'd rather that kid do is take 2 or 3 classes, get A's and B's, and then take the enriched class or another type of class and get A's and B's in those classes too. So it's finding that sweet spot between continuing to challenge themselves while also maintaining success and doing well.
Okay, got it.
Awesome.
Okay. No more questions for now?
No, you're good.
Okay. So for science, and this again says sophomores, but freshmen will go into biology, most likely, and we have bio and bio enriched. And then by sophomore year, they'll go into chemistry, chemistry general, enriched, or honors. Honors is being added for the 2023-2024 school year. And then a student would move into either physics or environmental. So I had mentioned before that students need 3 years of a lab science. That means bio, chemistry, and physics or environmental. After that, students can take science electives like AP Bio, AP Chemistry, or they can move into other AP classes. We also have cool classes like Bio for Allied Health, Biotech. Those are important if your student wants to go pre-med or may potentially do a medical field in college. They should consider taking Bio Enriched, and just pay attention to what the courses are that they might want to take senior year to make sure that they are meeting the requirements freshman year. They get in as a freshman and they suddenly feel like that's really difficult and they move down. Sometimes we see that students then get to senior year and they've improved and it was really just that freshman year was really difficult, but then they don't meet the requirements to go to those upper level classes. So it's just something to consider before you make any decisions for leveling. But again, we don't expect any freshmen to know exactly what they want to do in 4 years.
And
There's
just
kind of a fine line of just being aware of what you're doing when you're making decisions.
And just to add in, there's going to be bio honors as well. So coming up from the middle school, Ms. Rodriguez, who oversees math and science in the middle schools, she will be working with the science teachers and as well as with the high school teachers, both at Hills and Valley, to talk to the teachers about leveling, about which kids should be moving up to honors from 8th grade. And, you know, most of the kids, I would say, from biology, similar to in math, when they're already in Algebra 1, if they're going to move to Algebra 2, there will be conversations of the kids that are currently in biology, if they move up into enriched, chemistry enriched, or to chemistry honors. But for next year, there will be bio honors and chemistry honors. This is our first year we're running those 2 classes as honors classes as part of the tracks. So from the leveling standpoint, that's why there's a little greater attention that's going to be placed on the leveling from science up from the 8th grade into 9th grade. I know we had 2 quick questions about that, so we'll jump in. Hello, BK.
Hi. So the question we had was, my son already is in a biology class currently in 8th grade under Unified.
Yep.
So how would that apply towards him coming in as a freshman year?
It would.
What
It
type
would
of
be-
class?
Yep, it would be the science teacher's conversation with you guys and the counselor all involved about, you know, again, without knowing grades, and you obviously don't share grades, but looking at the grades and determining whether or not the enriched track or the honors track is better served. I don't know off the top of my head what the criteria they're using for that, but certainly would certainly reach out to the counselor when the scheduling starts, just to see sort of what areas they're falling into. I would say, just off the top of my head, if you're looking at an A or higher in the biology class currently, it's probably a good chance you would move up into the honors if that was something you'd want to do. But certainly over these next couple months, you know, have conversations with the counselor and also the biology teacher to figure out what sort of their ideas are in terms of, you know, where they believe your son or daughter falls for science placement next year.
Okay, so just to confirm, where if they have they do have an option to go into biology honors if the teachers and counselors were also in the agreement.
Yeah, and let me just clarify. You said your child is already in biology.
Yeah, he's currently
So
unified.
what'll happen is next year they'll take chemistry. So everything you said except chemistry instead of biology. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Miss Brown.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I have a question sort of, you know, I have another child there already, so I will say I'm very happy for a lot of these changes. I'm a little sad that they're coming now. But my question is since there are going to be different changes at each year kind of has something different, like they had enriched weighted and then they have them not. When the transcripts are sent to the colleges, is there going to be a profile that explains like exactly what was there for that year?
Yes, we send a school profile every year. And by time the current eighth graders move up, fast forward 4 years, it will go quick. I mean, already. But by the time they get to their senior year, our profile will designate the fact that they had these honors and these honors courses as opportunities for them, and the enriched courses were changed. So just like we updated our profile to send out this year that currently the enriched classes now carried weight, we're going to do the same thing as it trickles up to them when they're starting to apply for colleges.
Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking like 1 year it carried weight, but 1 year it didn't,
Yeah.
like,
And
so
with
would they know?
totally with the profile we send, like we include all the courses that carry weight in that profile. So like for this year, biology and chemistry won't carry that weight. And for the kids, as we're sending it, we probably won't necessarily add that until it will affect the kids that we're sending out the transcripts for.
Okay,
We also put in updates in that profile. So there's a piece of the profile where it says like, did anything change for that school year, where we can explain different things. And the counselors are also able to, on our end, with the materials that we send to colleges with each transcript, explain different things from the transcript so that it makes sense to the colleges.
okay, yeah, I'm just worried about the different years, like,
Right.
I'm also a school counselor, so I do the profile like for my current seniors, and we have in there what we have this year, but it doesn't necessarily explain that, my daughter's sophomore year, this was available, but this wasn't available. So I just wanted to make sure that that would all be clear.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Any other questions here?
One more. Hello, Mr. Lafredo.
Yes, quick question. You talked about the sweet spot between general, enriched, and AP classes. From a standpoint of applying to colleges, what do colleges emphasize more, the GPA or the quality, of the challenging courses that you take? So in other words, do they prefer a student with a 4.0 or better in general classes, or a student with like a 3.7 with enriched and AP courses?
It really depends on the student. So they look at the whole picture, especially now, since the pandemic, with test scores being looked at differently, and all schools doing something different with the way that they did their programming in general and their grading. What I hear most from representatives is that they're looking for longevity and leadership. So they want to see that students tried new things and then found programs they liked and stuck with them and became leaders in those programs, whether that's athletics or academics. So when you write your college essay and when your counselor writes a letter of recommendation, if you have a student who really struggles freshman year and then they work and improve and they get into some enriched classes, that's a really good thing to write about. And that's a really good thing that colleges like to see. If a student is strong all 4 years, top level kid, it's a whole different story. So it really is individual per the student, and there's no way to really know. And every college wants something different too, and every program in a university for their major. So it's kind of hard to answer. Really depends on the kid. I will say they do want to see that a student challenge themselves. So especially going over the course of the 4 years, if a student starts off in general and enriched, and then they're able to add higher levels as the years go on and give themselves a challenging course load by senior year, they love to see that as opposed to the opposite, where a student starts off really strong and then over the course of the 4 years drops off. So that's something to think about.
All right, we'll take one more question, then we'll move forward with the presentation. PK?
Yeah, Peter Crusher again. Thank you. I have two questions regarding AP courses. The first one, can a student take AP science course to satisfy science requirement?
That depends on the science course. So
That would, but just they coming in to satisfy the graduate, the requirements, the chemistry honors, let's say it's biology they're starting with, they can't take the AP class to start with. They have to go through the regular track. And what I mean by that is the general, enriched, or honors before they can get to the AP. So it's really, kids have to finish through chemistry before they can start taking the AP classes in science. What they can do, and what we have had students do, is double up with AP physics and AP chemistry, or AP biology and AP environmental. We've had that double up. It's a little bit tougher on the schedule because of how the labs come, because the kids are labbing out of their lunches to get the classes, but we do not allow kids to take the chemistry or biology courses, the AP classes, before actually taking the classes themselves.
Got it. What about the sophomore year, second year?
Sophomore year, again, depends on where they come in. So if they're coming in as freshmen in chemistry, they can take chemistry as a freshman. And then when they get to sophomore year, when they're deciding between physics and environmental, they can add the AP chemistry or AP biology as an elective class. So it's not going to fulfill, they still have to take the physics or the environmental class. They would then take the chemistry or the bio, the AP bio or AP chem as an elective course.
So they cannot they cannot substitute, but they can double up.
No, they can, yes, because they still need to fulfill, they need that third year to be physics or environmental. They could absolutely double up, but they can't replace, they can't take chemistry and then AP chemistry without having taken the physics or the environmental class.
Got it. So the second question is, how does the AP test carried out in May or ish time, how does that affect the final grade for the AP class?
It depends. I mean, the kids have the option to take the test. We do a bunch to promote kids taking the test. Every year we have anywhere between 550, 600, up to, in some years we've had 700 kids take 700 AP tests that we've administered. It sort of fluctuates year to year depending on the class, depending on the offering, but it does. There's no effect on how they do on the final exam, how they do in the final of the class versus how they do on the AP test. Obviously, we'd love to see the kids do as well as they can on the AP test, in addition to doing well in the class. But the one doesn't really have a direct impact on the other in that sense. But obviously, if they're doing well in the class, the hope that they would show and perform well on the AP test.
Got it. Thank you.
anything else?
No, we're good, Ms. Avila.
Okay, so for math, and we're lucky to have Mr. Wisniewski here because he is the math supervisor. So students' 9th grade course determines the sequence that they follow. So freshmen coming in will either be in algebra or geometry, and then wherever they start is where they go. So a student in algebra will then take geometry, and then will then take algebra 2. Geometry will then take algebra 2, then take pre-calc, and the unified track follows the unified track. You only need 3 years of math to graduate high school, but we have a lot of options for seniors to take a variety of math courses. So you can take college algebra, which is like a review, so that they can just have the math class for when they take the placement test going into their college years. Or they can continue with statistics like an elective, or go into calculus, take one of the AP Calc classes, and so on. Computer science electives. These are good ones for students to take. We have Intro to Computer Programming, which is a half-year course, and Foundations of Computer Programming, which is the full year course of that. The half-year course is not a prereq for the full year course. It just depends where your student's interest lies. If they have an interest, or if they just want to dabble in it, they can try one of these 2 courses. Business electives. So all students need to take the financial literacy requirement. This can either be the half-year financial literacy class as a freshman, or they can take one of these classes to meet their financial literacy requirement later on. Principles of Business is a full year class that a lot of sophomores or freshmen take to meet that requirement. We then also have classes like marketing, accounting, college business 1 and 2. For the financial literacy requirement, college business 2 meets that, but that will come later in your high school years. Technology education. So we have a lot of good electives that have 3 to 4 years of classes within those electives. So CAD, for example, has a lot of levels to it. TV is a big one. TV 1, 2, 3, 4. Photo, we're now adding AP photo this year, so that'll go on and on. Go ahead, Mr. Wisniewski.
I was going to say, so when you look at some of these courses, and if you think back to what we initially said, as freshmen, you're looking at 2 elective choices. What I always recommend, most people will come in and try to fulfill the financial literacy requirement, which is right on, perfect. It works out. The semester financial literacy class, it's a great introduction. You could balance that off with a writing workshop or even a study hall, knowing that the elective, sometimes like the freshman year transition can sometimes be difficult. So maybe you start with a semester study your first semester, and then you take the financial literacy the second. But the one thing I would recommend and consider is when you talk to your children about it, what are their interests are? Where do their interests lie? This is an opportunity where you have a couple of these elective requirements that Ms. Laviola covered early. You're going to hit those over the course of the year. But when you run into, say you have a strong interest in CAD or robotics, knowing that CAD is has a 4-year course sequence, you want to jump into that freshman year and make sure you get that. So CAD carries a 4-year course sequence. The auto track has a 4-year course sequence. Graphic design has a 3-year course sequence. Photography and TV have a 4-year course sequence. So these are a bunch of classes that really, if that's where your interests lie, that's where your children's interests lie, you're going to want to try to get into those classes as freshmen so they get that full experience 4 years down the line. One thing I try to say is like something like graphic design right now or robotics, with that only being a 3-course sequence, maybe you fulfill another requirement freshman year so that this way you can jump into graphic design or robotics as a sophomore so that you're finishing your senior year with that 3-course sequence. So it might sound a little crazy to plan freshman year for senior year, but you want to be able to open up spots in your schedule so that you can take the 4-year course sequence of courses that you want to take. I will be completely honest, the TV production classes really do fill up quick. So there's often times that those classes fill up, and that's even with freshmen coming in, but more kids are asking in it. So something like that, you have to be aware and consider the fact that what would be plan B if you didn't get into something like TV. That's probably the one elective that has the most people putting in for it. The other ones, pretty much, there should be no issue getting into the courses that you want. And like Ms. Laviola said, we sort of restructured our photography program a little bit. So by that 4th year, they do have the option to take an AP photo, which is a 2D studio art AP class. So it's a pretty cool opportunity. And Ms. Pritchard, who we brought in this year from Glen Ridge, has just been phenomenal in terms of building up that program. So we're super excited for her.
If your student goes into the auto program, they'll have a little bit of a different sequence because the auto class is 2 periods freshman year. But again, that's why all of these courses are very individualized, and it's just going to have to be a lot of conversations with your student school counselor because we can make things work. We just have to know what your student wants. So that's when we ask them to put in their electives, we really want to know all of the electives that they could be interested in. Instead of just putting in one and one alternate, if they can put in a couple, that's better because then we can try to get them somewhere that they want to be. It's a fine line between finding something they're good at and passionate about and committing to it, and also dabbling in new areas to learn about things that they might not know about before they leave high school. So we have a lot of those options here at Wayne Valley. Art electives. So students sometimes forget that in order to go into the upper level art classes, they need visual foundations. So this is important for freshmen and sophomores going in. If they have an interest in the arts, they should take visual foundations, visual arts first. These are pretty self-explanatory in the program guide, so you'll be able to see these. Same with our music, pretty self-explanatory. Chorus, chamber choir, symphonic band. We then have upper levels, AP music theory. There are prerequisites for certain courses, but each year your student can take chorus or symphonic band, and we put that in every single year. Family consumer sciences, foods is another really popular one that fills up. But if your student doesn't get foods freshman year, they often can get foods one sophomore year. But we have a really strong culinary program at Wayne Valley. So if your student has any interest in that, they can try it out foods one. A lot of freshmen do it and then don't continue, but a lot of students do continue through the 4 years of foods and go really far. Fashion design, we have new programs for that as well coming in the next year. So that's a good class for freshmen to look into. Child development, our child development program for students interested in going into the education field. They then, by senior year, can actually work with young kids in school. So it's a really good hands-on experience. And interior decorating is another good one. Dual enrollment, this doesn't apply for freshmen, but we just want parents and students to know that we have these options. So in college, when you go, as many of you know, the elective requirements that you have to take in college can cost anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000 per class. But we have the option for students to take those classes at Wayne Valley. We've paired up with local colleges. They pay a minimal fee of anywhere between $150 to $300, and then they get a transcript from that college with that class on there. This is something we'll talk about a lot more once your student is in high school, but just something to know that we have.
Yep, and just like I said, just to reinforce that point with Miss Saviola, is, this is nothing different for the kids. They're not going anywhere else. They're not seeing a different teacher. Really, the process for us is basically our teachers get approved as adjunct professors at, say, like Fairleigh Dickinson or NJIT, to teach, we'll say marketing, for instance, like our marketing one teacher, we have to send their resume, go through this whole process, also send our curriculum. So the FDU is basically approving our class as almost one of theirs. So what happens is at the end of the year, you're paying hundreds of dollars, maybe a couple $100 versus a couple $1,000 per credit while kids are in school at Wayne Valley. And like I said, no impact to their day. They're not leaving campus, not going anywhere else. What happens at the beginning of the year, the teachers will send home information, email information about signing up. As parents, you guys would sign up, pay the money, handle that. And then at the end of the year, we send final grades. Then FDU, NJIT, Seton Hall, whichever course that is the class is dual enrolled through, would then send you guys a transcript. Now, how that transcript goes is how that transcript would go if you were at that school, in terms of how it transfers, how it moves. If you're getting dual enrollment credits through Passaic County Community College, and then you try to take that to, say a high-end school, maybe they don't accept that, right? But if that's the credits from Seton Hall and you're going to go to Rutgers, that credit's going to transfer over a little bit easier. So it's nothing that we have a say over. We don't decide which schools take or don't take. And even if they go in like FDU, if kids take the FDU courses and then they go to FDU, those classes count towards that major. Where if they say they take those credits from FDU and to go to Rutgers, they might be just the general ed requirements when they go to Rutgers. So just a little bit, and I know that's something that is not necessarily, it's not an option for freshmen, but when you start thinking about business, and we have plenty of kids every year who go into business in terms of their majors coming out of Wayne Valley. Most of them will take principles of business as freshmen and then jump into marketing or accounting. That's sophomore year, you're faced with these questions about dual enrollment. So certainly something to keep an eye on and just be aware of, that as you go through these steps, you have this as an opportunity for you.
I already showed you the virtual program of studies. This you can find on our Wayne Valley homepage. I'll just click it one more time. You can see the different areas here. So if I click English, it'll bring you to the English classes. It'll show you some of our classrooms, talk about our AP courses. Alumni talk about their courses here. And this is from the PDF version of the program of studies that I had mentioned. So this is where you can see each class kind of in a more condensed format and which grades they're offered to and what the prereqs are. So this is like my preferred version of how to see each course because I like everything right in front of me. So some people might like this. A lot of students will like the virtual version where they can see each class. So you can see some of our classrooms here, course introductions, and some of what goes on in each area. So definitely take a look at this if you have some time. And then we have our counseling website and our YouTube page. So if you go to the Wayne Valley High School page, you can go to the counseling website. We have everything here that you could possibly need. We have things about our dual enrollment opportunities. We update this regularly. Something cool that we even have trade and career programs. So we post these as we find them, or as they're shared with us. We also are big on job opportunities. So when local businesses reach out to us with their job opportunities, we upload them here. So your student can always look for a job and volunteer options. Just slow to load at my house. And then our Wayne Valley School Counseling YouTube page has every presentation we ever give on demand. So if you're ever interested in what's to come in your future, you can check out the junior presentation that we gave for the most recent year. You can check out something for financial aid. Definitely worth taking a look at. Any questions?
And just to add on, you still have the Wayne Valley page on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes.
And in the coming weeks, we're going to be sending out, also connecting a Facebook page that follows Wayne Valley High School. So it's really just at Wayne Valley HS. So if you want to follow that as well, we post a lot of the information about our courses. We get the kids, it's great to highlight what's going on at the schools. So if you want to come visit us for the plays that are coming up, the musical in the spring, SDA, we have a culinary competition in March. I mean, we'll promote that and push that out through our social media accounts. So if you wanted to follow that and just get an idea of some of the things that we have going on, that maybe your son or daughter might be interested in attending, certainly that's a great place to go to for that information. I know we do have a couple questions, so I'm going to just start, Ms. Phelan. All right, maybe we'll come back. Jason? All right, we'll swing back. And before I have Miss Frank come on, our presentation is done, and we're going to stay on, answer any questions you may have. But before everybody jumped off, like I said, we are recording this, so we will be able to post that to that link. We'll send it out to the middle school principals so that this way they can have it and share it with you. But throughout this process, just know you can reach out to us if you have questions. We want to make this process as simple and as easy for you as possible. So if there's questions we could answer, by all means, just reach out to me at the high school. If it's one of the counselors respond or I respond, doesn't matter. Or if I'm going to send you to one of the other APs, the more I run the master schedule at the school, the more conversations and the more things we square away when the teachers are there, everybody's there, makes it so much easier to get done. So part of the night tonight is to introduce what we have, but also just reinforce that we're here for you. We're here to help. We're here as a resource. Even if you want to ask a simple question, there's no question too simple, because if this is your first time having a kid go to high school, there's a lot. There's a lot to grasp. There's a lot to understand. There's a lot to go through. And if easing everybody's mind by getting a schedule done and being confident in the classes that they're taking, that's one thing that you can take off your plate and not worry about as they move into being freshmen here at Valley. We absolutely want to do that because that's something that's controllable. Like I said, we are here. So we're going to stay on, answer any questions you may have. But on behalf of Wayne Valley High School, Miss Laviola, the counseling department, just want to say thank you all for coming. We had about 75, 80 people on, which is awesome. You know, that is awesome. And just like I said, just if anybody couldn't make it, just let them know to keep an eye out for the posting on social media. But thank you again. And like I said, we'll stay on, answer any questions. We'll go through and we'll allow Miss Frank to jump in.
Thank you. I had a question on the dual enrollment. Would the
Yes.
student need to be in the enriched or honors program to be able to qualify for a dual enrollment?
There's not really an enriched or honors program per se, right? So I mean, you could be in English 9 honors and world history honors, but taking algebra 1 enriched. You know what I mean? So the answer to that is the dual enrollment classes are all electives. So they're really, as of right now, they don't carry any additional weight, although there are conversations and we're hoping to be able to solidify what that answer is going to be in the next couple of weeks. But the plan is for next year for all the dual enrollment classes to carry the enriched weight. So to answer your question, if they meet the prerequisites for taking the class, say for marketing or for accounting or for any of our dual enrollment classes, by all means, they can get the dual enrollment credit. So they don't necessarily need to be in an AP or honors class. And that's one of the other benefits of the dual enrollment is that it's not always just the AP classes. It covers a lot more of the classes that a lot more kids have access to. So it's a great opportunity for more kids to access information that will transcend into post-secondary education.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. All right, Ms. Lopez.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just have a question. I had 2 kids go there already, but my third one, he's at Anthony Wayne. He's taking Windows Art, and he's going to submit a portfolio. So when he creates his schedule, does he add that art class in there, or does he have to take something else until he gets accepted into the art class?
That'll be something the counselor will manage. What I would say is that it depends on how the middle school counselor does it. And Mr. Fanuel, you said Anthony Wayne, right?
Yeah.
So Mr. Fanuel probably, again, the thing about this, and I could tell you because I do the schedule, you could put a placeholder in when for them, whether or not they put that class or not, making that switch back into whether the switch up that they got in or back because they didn't, is something that is totally doable on the schedule. So there's nothing like when you fill out that form for the kids and it's, by the end of March, we hope to have it all done. It's not like if anything needs to change after that, it's impossible to change. Totally possible to change. And again, it might just depend on the process that they use at Anthony Wayne. So I would definitely reach out to Mr. Fanuel, figure out, in that process, what they do. I know what will happen sometimes, like with English or social studies, if they're asking to be moved up and there's a writing stable that goes along with it, they'll most of the time keep the kids at the, say, enriched level before they move them up into honors. So in their schedule, they'll put enriched. And then once they get the notice that they got approved to move up to honors, then they'll make the switch to honors.
Okay.
All right. So like I said, I know that doesn't necessarily specifically answer your question, but Mr. Fanuel will definitely know it. And that's, I know, the process they use for English and social studies.
Okay. Thank you. I'll reach out to him.
Awesome. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. We will, let's see. BK.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. How many total classes that the kids take when they're the freshmen?
So what every student will have opportunities to take 8 courses. But that's how our schedule aligns. Now I know we could have a whole nother presentation on just how that schedule works. Even though they have 8 classes on their schedule, only 6 meet a day, but they will have 8 classes on their schedule. That's where the 40 credit a year comes from, because each one of their classes carries 5 credits.
I know you had mentioned that they have an option to take 2 electives. Does that mean 6 of those 8 courses are pre-decided by the middle school teachers and counselors?
Well, those other 6 classes, and like I said, we can go through those. You have a math class, which is required. You have an English class, which is required. Science, social studies, all required. And whatever course that is, like Miss Laviola said, for math, that could be algebra 1, that could be geometry, it could be unified 3. For English, it could be English 9, regular, enriched, or honors. You know, so you have options and levels along those 4 cores. Phys ed is also phys ed and health is also a 4-year requirement. So phys ed and English, the only 2 classes you have to take all 4 years of high school. So that's 5 right there. Because foreign language carries that 2-year requirement, kids will take the first year of high school. They'll take whatever that level is in Spanish. So that's 6 classes just right off the bat. That's what I mean, like in terms of the electives. So those are courses that sort of get taken care of. Like I said, those 4 or 5 classes right at the top are all required classes. 6 is the foreign language that they typically take. So you're really looking at those 2 elective options. And I would focus, for me, if I were to advise a parent, figure out what your son or daughter wants to do. What is the absolute number one thing that just blows their mind and they're totally stoked about doing it? Figure that class out first. Then the other one is, if they don't have 2 classes where they feel that way, that other class should probably be the financial literacy requirement. So this way you're checking off another box as freshmen. Then sophomore year, you're looking again at 2 elective options, because you have the 2 years of the foreign language. Really is when your schedule starts to open up in terms of requirements, is junior year, because then you drop the foreign language requirement, which gives you another elective option. And then by senior year, technically you're only required math and you're only required English and phys ed. Now, like I said, we have about 95% of our kids will take a 4th year of math. And that 4th year of math, there's a ton of different options, like Miss Laviola said. Taking the 4th year math is so important, because math is going to be required in college. There's going to be a placement exam in college, regardless of where they go. Even in trade schools, keeping up their math skills is so important, and losing a year is really hard to make up. That is why we have a bunch of different levels, from AP classes and honors weighted courses. And we have a dual enrollment class as a senior, but we also have lower level classes that are preparing kids for those types of assessments. So you do have that full range, which is why we get about 95% of our kids taking the 4th year of math. But in terms of that, that's where those 6 classes come from. That's why I keep saying you have those 2 elective options.
Okay, so when it comes to taking those required classes, which are math, English, social studies, and science, based on where the kid currently is and in the 8th grade, or which level that he's in, let's say my kid is in unified, do the teachers and the counselors there, do they make recommendations, or do they make determination as to which level he's going to start on the 9th grade?
Yep. Right now, I want to say the window is open for the teachers in the middle school. At the high school, our window opened maybe 2 weeks ago for teachers to start making recommendations on level. So as the kids move from algebra 1 to geometry, they're saying, should they stay in enriched, should they stay in regular, or should they go up or down? Similar conversations are happening at the middle school. In fact, this year, which we were doing this prior to COVID, we had the math 8 and algebra 1 teachers from Anthony Wayne and GW visiting the high schools. Awesome experience, because they got to see, what the levels are, what does algebra 1 look like at Wayne Valley versus algebra 1 at GW or Anthony Wayne. Having those conversations, connecting those teachers, collaborating, also talking about levels. If hypothetically we have a kid at this level, where should they really fall? What should we be looking for? What types of skills do they absolutely need to have to be able to be successful the next year at high school? So certainly those conversations are happening. If they haven't happened already at the middle school, which I believe they have, they're certainly going to be happening along the way. And one other piece that we do at the high school, which I believe the middle schools are going to take on as well, is even though we take recommendations for teachers and fully acknowledging we're only halfway through the year, we ask the teachers again at the end of the 3rd marking period and at the interim of the 4th marking period, do you have any level changes? Do you have any kids that either you said that you think should move down, but now are rocking it, or, started off strong, but now are dipping as the material gets a little harder as the year goes on? So this is something that, from a leveling standpoint, I don't want to say is fluid, but we're constantly reevaluating, constantly going back to the teachers to ask them how the progress is, because we want to make sure that that level is correct. With freshmen coming in, we tend to be a little more lenient in terms of as we progress. If we notice a freshman after first, couple weeks of school is really struggling at a level, we would recommend the move down. Same on the other end. If we were a kid who 3 weeks in is just getting hundreds on everything, we're going to want to move them up. So we tried to be mindful of the freshmen that sometimes at that level may or may not be right. And when I say we change kids, I'm saying maybe 5-6 kids in math that, on a yearly basis that we're looking at saying, maybe we should move up, maybe we should move down. And that's just conversations that I have along with the guidance counselor, with the parents, to make sure everybody's on board and understanding, what a move up or down would actually mean. And if in the long run, is it going to be beneficial to stay and try to wait it out, or make the move down and find success?
Are you saying that the teachers at the middle school and counselors are making recommendations about the kids that are there currently in 8th grade to you guys to let you know where this kid should start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm wondering, the reason I'm asking is should they have those conversations with the parents before they make recommendations, or they generally don't do that?
Depends. What I tell the teachers at Valley is, if you're keeping a kid at the same level, and I think you said your son or daughter's in Unified, if they're staying in Unified, there's really no conversation, right? If they're doing well and they're appropriately placed and, everything's going well, there's not really a need to have that conversation, right? Where they're going to have those conversations, if, they're in Unified and they're getting like a C and they're really struggling, really working hard, maybe that's the phone call to say, listen, I know they're in Unified, but they're struggling. Maybe they'd be better served moving down a level. That's where you're going to have the conversations. I tell our teachers, anytime you're going to want to move a kid up or down, changing their level, certainly need to have that conversation before you make the move.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, are they making recommendation to high school to say when the 9th grade they should start here, or are they just talking about the next marking period?
They will do that. They'll give us the middle school counselors actually build and input all the information into Encores that we see. So the middle school counselor builds the student's schedule at the middle school level, and we see it, and it just feeds into the high school schedule.
I see. So it would be best served is if we were to talk to the counselor and the teachers to figure out that what their impression of my kid is, where they are planning to place him. So this time frame, when do they actually do this? Do they do this now? Do they do this in 2 months from now? Do you have
this will start happening now. This will start happening over the next couple weeks at the middle school level for sure. I know like I said, at Valley, we've started ours, but it'll start. And like I said, that initial placement may or may not need to be revised as the year goes on. But certainly I think if you're wondering where your child falls, I would look at their grades, see how they're doing. If they're doing well, it's fair to assume that they're going to stay in the levels they're at. If you notice they're struggling or doing exceedingly well, knowing there's a higher level that they can go into, maybe you have that conversation too. But I would say over the next couple of weeks, if you don't hear from Mr. Fanuel, whether it's Mr. Fanuel or Miss Molina at GW, definitely reach out to them and just to find out where they're projecting. My understanding in the past with the middle school is they've always sent that scheduling sheet home. I'm not sure now that they're doing some more stuff online if they're going to still be sending that paper home, but certainly that's would be an opportunity for you to see what courses your child was recommended for.
So when that recommendation is made to the school, what is the role of my kid or ours to say that what classes should he pick, or he only needs to worry about picking the electives?
He would really only need to be worried about picking the electives. Those other classes, the teachers are going to recommend a level. Now, if you had a question about the level, so, if they're in enriched and you think they should be able to move up to honors or vice versa, that would be the conversation you would have with the with the counselor and the teacher of that content area, and also any administrator that was appropriate at the middle school level.
Okay, so yeah, that's a little more clear now. I appreciate the additional information.
Yep.
So now more is in the elective sides of it that my kid needs to figure out what exactly he wants to get into. Apart from the 6 classes that he should definitely take, which is
Yes.
math, English, science, social studies, phys ed, and language, which obviously you recommend that we should do.
Yep.
Just get the 2-year requirement completed.
Yep.
And then there will be 2 electives. So there are a total of 8 classes at high school, and each of them are about an hour.
58 minutes.
50. Okay, and then there is also a lunch in between, right?
Yeah, the unit lunch is a 55-minute unit lunch.
Okay.
Awesome. And like I said, we're here if there's ever any questions or you need any clarification.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night. Good evening, Diane.
Hi, so my question really is, I understand the core classes and then including the language. Would financial lit be considered one of the 2 electives?
It could be, yes.
And financial lit runs, you said half the year?
Yeah, you have a financial literacy course, which is a semester class. And then you have principles of business, which is a full year course. Really how I would delineate those 2 is if there's any intent to stick with a business mindset. If you're looking to move ahead in accounting, marketing, just in that business realm, principles of business is a much better option. Provides basically a sampler of all the other business courses we have: marketing, accounting, entrepreneurship, economics, and where financial literacy is just meeting the financial literacy requirement.
Okay, so that principles of business would be the whole year and that would satisfy one of the elective courses.
Yep, it would be a full year course and would still satisfy the financial literacy requirement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Ms. Frank, did you have another question or was your hand just up?
Sorry, it was left up.
That's all right. Just making sure. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
All right. So we're going to hang in. If you guys have any more questions, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes. Just raise your hand, hop in, and hopefully we can answer any questions you may have. Hello, Jason.
Yeah, hi, sorry. We had
That's all right.
kind of mute. Getting back to the STEM classes, the ones that have a 4-year run.
Yep.
My son would need to start off in freshman, or would he be able to join in at a later grade level?
Yeah, now I'll say this. If you miss CAD 1 as a freshman and you take CAD 1 as a sophomore, 100% you can still do that, right?
Okay.
The only thing,
So
like I
all
said,
4 years is
you just-
not a
you just
requirement.
missed that 4th year of it. No, it's not required for all 4 years.
Okay.
I mean, you could even go into CAD 1 and say, listen, I thought this was something else. I totally didn't enjoy it. You just divert. You are not, nobody's locked into anything. And I think that's a difference between, Wayne Hills, Wayne Valley versus some of the other options that are here that are local, is you don't get funneled or pigeonholed into a certain set of courses as you start freshman year. You have the ability to take all 4 years of those CAD. I mean, we have kids take the 4 years of CAD, take the 3 years of robotics, and just have a blast with their life, right? That's not every kid, right? So just because you take CAD 1 as a freshman, you are not locked in by any stretch to take all 4 years of CAD. We just say that if that's something that's an interest and that's something that might be something that your child wants to do, give it a shot freshman year, because like I said, by time, if you try it sophomore year or even junior year, you're missing out on some of the higher end things, which is really where some of the kids really start to have fun, especially if that's where their interest is.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good night.